welcome to the Tapped In Indy Podcast. I am, of course, Nick McDaniel. And look, we hyped this for a couple weeks here that Heath's on vacation for the next month, it feels like, for the next 4 weeks. We went out of our way to make sure that you found somebody that's really going to do, what's the old saying in wrestling? If you have to substitute, you always want to do an upgrade. You want to do something that'll over-deliver for the fans. And, of course, I reached into my bag of tricks and reached out to the frat daddy himself, Bryce Cannon. Welcome to the show, man.
Hey, I'm excited for this. When you reached out, there was no hesitation behind it. I feel like I've got some big shoes to fill. However, Heath, he does a hell of a job with you guys. So we'll see what happens. But I'm grateful, blessed, and really excited to be here.
Yeah, look, we had talked about it. It was like, it's something like, I get it. We're fans. That's all, our opinion. It's fan opinions. And we've always said that's what we are. So we thought it would be a cool twist to bring in somebody who's kind of got a little bit more of a peek behind the curtain other than rumor and innuendos and what we're told and all that kind of stuff. And you'll have a different perspective on guys. Like, we may like a guy, but I think that's a cool thing that we'll kind of have between me and you over the next month, is that we'll see, like, I look at a guy one way and you may another, and vice versa. And look, the only thing that, we kind of had conversations of like, what is this going to look like?
Right. Yeah. I mean, it's a big question mark at this point. Cause a peek behind the curtain, I think the most we talked about this was right before we hit play. We just kind of said, hey, here's some dates. Here's what we're going to do. And let's see what happens. But there's going to be a lot of, I feel like, fun discussions over the next couple of weeks that we're going to have, whether it be, like you said, we're both fans here. We're all fans of wrestling. So, but with me actually being in the ring and kind of thinking like a wrestler, maybe there's a different perspective out there that you may not have thought of, and maybe vice versa with some of the topics that we're going to cover.
Well, it's one of the things we always talk about in wrestling, specifically on our show, we try to anyway, is I am a wrestling fan, but I'm also like, hey, I'm also kind of like a business guy. So I'm like, it's got to make dollars. It's got to make sense. But look, I'm not going to get into the conversation we had yet about what we talked about before the show, but it is one of those conversations of like, I actually made a joke. I was talking to another guy, is actually talking to a promoter this morning. And I was like, okay, let's just come all to the grips that we're all hypocrites in wrestling. Because I can tell you today, I'm going to tell you today, make every dime you can make and make sure you know your worth, all those things, whatever. But then I'm like, and then I'll completely contradict myself and say, but you should do this too.
Right. Yeah. And that's the thing, is I feel like wrestling is one of those situational relationships. It's you do it over here one way, but then a certain situation pops up and it's like, okay, well, it's not that I'm being a hypocrite. It's just this opportunity calls me to pivot when this one is more set in stone. So I don't know if hypocrite's the right word, but yeah, we're all hypocrites.
We're all hypocrites. It's a wrestling is it's a contradiction of all circumstances and all of those kind of things. But on one hand, it's like make every penny, but create the value and all of those types of things, which leads me right into what I think is one of the best values around, patreon.com/tappedOutPod. Listen, I promise you, as we grow into this over the next few weeks, this is going to be some value here, because the show notes are probably going to look a lot different than they've been in the past. You do get those at the lowest, that $1 paid level. But look, I guess I should probably also come out and tell people over the next month, we're going to tell you now, Tapped In and the Georgia Wrestling Spotlight, it's one show. I'm not going to make Bryce sit down through 2 recordings. We're going to do one-shot recordings. Well, here's the crazy thing, by the way. I just told you Bryce Cannon's also sitting in on the Georgia Wrestling Spotlight for the next month. Could you be partial? Like, could you kind of like keep, everything in perspective? Like, we're going to cover shows today that you're on.
Right. I will keep my personal opinions close to the vest here, close to the chest, and I'll do my best. Like I said, I'll sign the no contact contract and I'll be professional.
Listen, but on the other hand, man, I don't want you to I want your honest
Oh, I'm going to
opinions.
be honest. I'm going to
Okay.
be honest. I may get some heat from some of the boys and girls in the locker room, but hey, honesty is the best policy.
Listen, I agree as well. Speaking of your opinion, I don't know if you caught last week's show. Some topics came up, and I just wanted to ask you before we got into some of the stuff this week. Wanted to ask you about God, this topic literally spills back all the way to Carly Bravo making a post, and it just kind of has steamrolled over time. And I went to a couple shows over the weekend, and it got addressed again. It was brought up to me on these shows, where last week we discussed Developmental versus Savannah Bananas.
Mm-hmm.
Some people liked the comparison, some people did not. Some people didn't like my take on what I said about some promotions, and I wanted to ask you okay, full disclosure, we know you listened. You told me we talked about it.
Yeah,
you got it right. Like, it made sense, I hope.
yeah. I think it just gets confusing because some people don't realize the bracket maybe Savannah Bananas are in, because they're in their almost like own league. I feel like they're a different level of sports entertainment because you guys were talking about like the different tiers of like MLB, AAA, and things like that. And where the Savannah Bananas are, it's more of a they're doing their own thing. And so when it comes to like Developmental versus Savannah Bananas, the promotions in Georgia, you've got your promotions that are doing the Savannah Bananas where they're doing their own thing. They're in their own lane. They're in their own, vehicle and going in their own direction. And then you've got your more traditional promotions in Georgia where you're getting your show, and the next show, it's either going to be a story that moves forward with it or not. And we kind of talked about it a little bit where there you have your promotions that are gearing guys up for TV as well. So yes, they would be your developmentals. They would be your we want to see our guys go to that next level. We want them to see them go and get better, whether it's TV or a higher promotion in Georgia. Just speaking from personal experience down in Savannah at Coastal, I feel like play that fine line of developmental and Savannah Banana-y, area there. And the reason I say that is because we have intricate storylines that make our roster members think and kind of start processing more psychology-wise. And then we also have, cameras. We tell guys to work the cameras and to get better. We want to see our guys, get better. But we also have the thought process of, we want to be the best in Georgia. We want to be the best promotion in the Southeast. So how do we do that while also helping guys? So you've got your promotions that like CEW that sit on that line of developmental, but you definitely have your promotions that are helping guys way more than some of the guys even know. So,
and we've talked about it. Like, you might, sometimes the trade-off is, hey, you're working for action to be on IWTV to be seen. You're working for a Southern Honor because you're going to get a heck of a video package out of it. That's something that you could show around people. You're going to work a OneFall because you might work Billy Gunn, Satnam Singh, Jay Lee. Who knows? Right. Carly Bravo's, it's on a random Monday is at a show, right? So that's the kind of stuff we talk about. And I kind of was trying to get that across to people that, like, hey, we're not trying to say one's bad or the other. Some shows just want to be the best shows in their place. Like, hey, we're the best show in our town. Show up every month, every 2 months, pay your money. We're going to entertain you for a couple hours. That's what I call the Savannah Bananas promotions. They're like, their goal is, we're the best at what we do. We stay in our place, we do our thing, and we run.
Yep.
Is there a difference from the guys? First hard question for Bryce. Is there a hard line in where people look at these promotions sometimes, and do some of them have a stigma because of that? Like, is it one or the other? It could work either way.
Yeah. So if you're looking at it from a wrestler's perspective, there are certain promotions that guys may look at and say, well, I'm not going there because of X, Y, and Z, where I feel like each promotion you look at is going to have their pros and cons. And that's, we'll go deeper. And this is a life lesson. You know, you always want to weigh your pros and cons of places. So if one promotion is going to get you exposure, but a little less in the envelope, do you take it because you're wanting a little more in the envelope? Do you take it because you want the exposure, you want the opportunity? And then some promotions, it's a more comfortable thing. It's okay, I know I can get paid, I know I'm going to have a good match, and then you accept the booking and you go just based off of that. But as far as like a stigma or anything, I think it just depends on the person, because in some guys, like I said, they're more fixated on money. And so if that's what your motivating force is, you're going to have a different opinion on this promotion than I do. Because I talked to you a little bit before we started recording. Coming back from injury, I kind of quit looking at the dollar amount a little bit and realizing, okay, what can I get out of this promotion, or what can I do for them, and what can they do for me? And so it honestly just depends on your goals and your motivating forces, that, if that makes sense.
No. Now again, second hard question, because somebody asked me, and this is something that I stand behind. First thing you could probably tell me I'm wrong on. I also tell kids, though, not so much kids. I'm 52, so everybody in wrestling is pretty much a kid to me at this point. But I will tell them, you do also have to learn at some point, I have outgrown this place. And that's not a disrespect to the place. It's like I'm not, like, it. They always say don't be the smartest man in the room, because then you're in the wrong room. I also tell wrestlers at times, being the best wrestler on the card every show probably means you're in the wrong promotion now. Do you agree with that?
Right. Yeah. No. I fully agree with that. It's if your goal in this is to make it somewhere, you're not going to get there by wrestling the same guys every week. You're not going to get there by the same people giving you compliments every week. The way you make it in here is making the towns, wrestling guys that you don't know. You maybe not have just met them at that show. It's putting yourself in those uncomfortable positions and, learning from those. It's a learning game with wrestling. So yeah, you don't want to be the smartest guy in the room. You want to be a smart guy in the room, but you don't want to be the smartest, because at that point, what are you learning? What are you going to gain? And if you're just working the same guys over and over and over again, it's what are you really learning? Like, yeah, the match may be a little different from how you set it up, because you're doing a submission match versus just a regular exhibition. But other than that, that guy like the back of your hand. If he's going to step left and you step right. So you're not progressing. You're not getting any better. You're just at that point staying stagnant. And I mean, I've had conversations with guys about, staying in the same locker rooms. It's like, get out, go do your thing. Like, you have potential and you're wasting it by not using your potential. And it's a smart business decision for promoters to keep you around, because number one, in the fans' eyes here, you're the best. So you're drawing me money. But are you making, here's the hypocrite in me. Is that promoter paying you more because you're making them more? So it's the business part of it. But yeah, no, I fully agree with that statement of don't be the smartest guy in the room, because you're not going to learn with that.
Yeah, and it's simple. Like I said, that goes back to Nick's theory of A ball, double A, triple A. Like, you're trying to climb the ladders. Where do I want to navigate through that? And a lot of promotions were like, hey, where are we? I don't do it on air, but I tell people where I think they fall. And, when I'm at promotion, I'm like, hey, I think you're an A-ball team. And it's no offense. It's just what you are. And at some point, you guys should work. They should if they're your champion, they realize today's come. It's time to drop the belt. It's time to move on and go to work over here and go over here. Because cities, you could 100% attest to this. The cities in Georgia is just so different.
Oh,
like the crowds. And I'm like, you need to learn how to work a Monroe crowd. You need to learn how to work a Canton crowd. You need to learn how to work an Augusta crowd, Savannah crowd. Over West Georgia is completely, think about what Bullpen's doing over there under Bull Buchanan versus to simply what you guys do on the East Coast over in Coastal. Like how different the promotions are. They're night and day. And I'm always like, man, you need to figure out how to do both because you'll learn so much from working both.
Yeah, and like you're saying, I mean, there are so many different crowd types in Georgia. You've got your brewery crowd, you've got your bar crowd, you've got your what's the best way to put them?
I call them wrestling
rednecks.
towns.
Yeah, your wrestling fans.
Towns.
There you go. You've got your smart marks. You've got, in some shows you'll have a combination of all of those in there. So it's knowing your audience, and it goes back to what we were just talking about. If you're working in front of the same crowd every week, every month, and then you go to another crowd and you realize, okay, I'm not as over as I thought I was. Not only does that hit you in the gut like a ton of bricks, but it'll take you back and say, okay, hopefully it makes you think like, okay, what do I need to change? What can I do to get better? Where can I go that's going to push me to be a better wrestler, a better performer? There's a lot of factors that, can be taken in and honestly, it's just as easy as hopping in a car with a guy. I'll go ahead and put the kid over, Clark, referee Clark. That is one dude who is not afraid to do it old school and hop in a car, and he's not booked. He's just going to network. But I've seen him get booked just based off of hopping in a car and making a town, just because, I mean, he's passionate about it and he wants to learn and he wants the booking and he wants to get his face out there so he can be the best. And so far it's working for him.
Look, we've spoken highly of him. I've seen him in person a couple times. Believe it or not, I saw him at Kraken. I've seen him at Southern Honor. Like, I've seen a couple places, where he's getting out and about. I have jokingly said on the air, and I when I say jokingly, I don't mean it when I say jokingly because he's so young. I'm like, I would not be stunned if the kid, when he's 18, he's gone.
Yeah, no. And I mean, he worked the Jackson show that we did for Lariato. And he was getting told by ex WWE guys that he was TV ready. So yeah, I mean, that statement you just made, I think is going to be very true.
It would not shock me in the least. So look, Ref Clark was mentioned. We didn't put him on this week's list, but obviously this week we're up. It is the Underrated Underappreciated award, named after the one and only Varia Morales, who is no longer eligible for this award because without fail, we just say, and I'm sure you've caught that running joke over the weeks that every time this award comes up, I'm like, I just feel like he's on the list every time. And I think it's kind of like the Kyle Matthews Award when they talk about those. We're kind of like, if you win it, if you're on the list for like 6, 7, 8 consecutive shows that we do this award, all right, you're off the list. You can't be on it anymore. We just named the award after you, so it makes it standing clear. I'm eager to hear your take on some of these guys because these are a lot of times guys that we feel like the heart and soul of this, award, and I threw air quotes around that, folks, if you're listening on one of the podcast platforms. It's guys that we just like, hey, why is there not more buzz about this guy? Like, this is a guy, like, and we understand at times, we really do understand, like, maybe the why, but we feel like they deserve a little more. And most of the time, my argument is they should be booked more. They should be booked in more places than they are. I'm going to start with one of my favorites, and I know this is it's a crazy for people here. So, Michael Solar. He's your Nerd U champion right now. Everywhere I go that he's a babyface, he gets crazy reactions. and I wanted to, I needed to send it to you. It's the craziest thing. It kind of would tie in some of our conversation about different shows. If you get an opportunity to work like a middle school show or a high school show, those are some of the best.
Oh
Because
yeah.
you get the most casual fans that it's so. I went to the show on Saturday. They ran a show in Jackson, Jefferson at the Jackson County Ag Center. The pop Michael Solar got for a shoulder tackle. Like I recorded it. I just happened to be recording it, and I was like, I sent it to Heath off air. I was like, you'll probably get this in a week or a month, who knows? But this is crazy, and it was bananas. But he literally to me reminds me. I get it, folks. By the way, when you're listening to this episode to the Tapped Out podcast, tomorrow's show, our truth will be discussed. I may get your opinion at the end of the show. Who knows? But I always say he's like a utility player like that. Like, hey, we need comedy. He could do that. Hey, we need a guy who can get he's a baby face. He's a heel. But one of my favorite things is with Michael Solar, and then I'm going to let you share your thoughts. I watched him work a match one night, and I was like, wait, he can actually wrestle. Like, I forget that Gresham trained him.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So this is where the wrestler talk comes in for me, and like the honesty here. So Michael Solar, super nice guy, super great, and this is a conversation that was told to me and kind of motivated me to like step up my game. Is crowds love him and everything, and he's starting to get to where he looks like a wrestler now. When I first met him, I didn't know who he was, but I knew that he was helping set rings up, and he still does. So he's putting in all of the right, work and everything like that. And I feel like he's got, a great head on him. He's, like you said, he's a utility player, so he can fit whatever role you need for him. I think I was on a show with him like maybe a month ago or so. And like you said, I mean, he gets a phenomenal reaction. And I feel like he would get just that much better if he really puts his nose to the grind and just gets out there and gets booked and, uses his potential to to his fullest. So but yeah, no, I like Michael. He's a super cool guy, a super respectful. But yeah, I mean, I definitely do feel like he sits on this underappreciated, underrated list for sure.
Number 2 is a guy that I think I'm going to surprise you with this one. I feel like you guys are in a very similar lane, and that is Guillo. And I'll get to what I mean by that in a minute. I think Grillo's TV ready. Obviously, he's on TV. That's kind of why that's an obvious answer, right?
Mm-hmm.
I think he's a pro's pro. So I feel like when I say y'all are in the same lane, what I mean by that is I think you're like right there. Like I see you guys at that same tier of, hey, look, I'm not blowing smoke up you. We've had this conversation.
Mm-hmm.
I think there's no reason you're not in TNA. You don't have to respond. There's no reason I think you should be in TNA at this point, at minimum. I think, Ring of Honor, that would work as well. NXT, why not? Like, I don't understand. So now we'll get past the Bryce Cannon Fan Fest section. But I see Guillo right there. But I think it could be things like size, conditioning. You're both, I see all of the physical work going into it. And, but I think same, both of you, I think super highly of both of you. But that's kind of why I think in my brain, I was like, I see you guys kind of like as that pair that are like rising up at that same level, kind of ready to just before we know it, next year, the next 6 months, who knows, boom, you're both gone and you're out of Georgia.
Mm-hmm. No, I would love that. No, but focusing on Guillo, we actually just used him at Coastal this past weekend, and man, the reaction he got. Never worked with us in Savannah before, and the crowd hated him. He is good at his job. He is good at the role that you put him in. And he's also one of those guys who just because he is used on TV a lot with Ring of Honor and things like that, he's also willing to put chairs out. He is willing to do what you need of him, so that the show goes off without a hitch. I mean, pulling back the curtain. I mean, he messaged me. He goes, "Hey, is there anything else you need from me before I head, that way? Like, what's call time? But is there anything you need from me?" So he is one of those guys who is willing to go that extra step, willing to go that extra mile, that to make sure that his job is done, fulfilled, and done correctly. I'm a huge fan of Guillo, and I've always been. He's not only because he's Italian, but I'm a little jealous of that. But no, Guillo is, like you said, he's TV ready in my eyes as well. And like you said, could it be a size thing? But then I look at him on Ring of Honor, and I'm like, he fits right in. I wouldn't know that he wasn't signed, But no, Guillo's got it, and I hope nothing but huge successes in his future.
Yeah, he's, like I said, I'm a huge fan of his, but yes, he is very dislikable. Like he's great at that, being that role. I'm gonna save the next one for last for a lot of reasons, but I'm gonna hop over Trevor Aon. Trevor Aon has been around as long as he's been longer, I'm sure, folks, but as long as this podcast has been around, Trevor Aon has been around. Like, I remember him. I'm going to throw an old school reference to 13th Floor out there. Like, a lot of people don't even remember that, but that group at one point was like, hey, there was 3 guys we thought all had the potential to be signed. Trevor Aon's, still putting in the work, and he is everywhere. He's the Kraken champion. By the way, phenomenal storyline they did. They ran that for the whole storyline for over a year. Trevor's the guy. Like, they see Trevor, he's like, okay, they see it. My question was like, why more people don't see it? I've seen him in, AEW, Atlanta Wrestling Entertainment. I've seen him at all these other places. I just feel like, what's holding it back? Like, what, but I feel like he's completely underrated, underappreciated, because when the bell rings, he ain't missing a thing.
Right.
Like,
yeah.
He could go.
And Trevor's also one of those guys, he looks the part. He is jacked. He is he'll post his some of his workouts online, and it's like, how is this guy doing some of this stuff? And so, just the look that he's got, the demonic, vampire-ish, just eerie look to him. What he is just by seeing a silhouette. There is a certain thing out there called the silhouette test when it comes to wrestling, and that is pretty much, if you were to line up a group of guys and it was just silhouettes, could you pick out Bryce Cannon? Could you pick out Trevor Aon? It's the little things that push you to that next level. But Trevor I feel like he's finally getting his comeuppance in some of these promotions that he's working for, and I'm happy to see it for him.
Number 4, Parker Lee and Hera. They have actually been on this list. They have been on a couple lists, believe it or not. Parker Lee's a young man who, I think, here's the thing. First saw Parker Lee, saw him in I think the first time I saw him was probably in the old Landmark Arena. And everybody looked at him and said, oh, he looks like Ricky Steamboat. He's going to be the white meat baby face, whatever. And in hindsight now, this heel run with Hera is probably the best thing to happen for him. Because now we see him as the just punk kid with the... By the way, I noticed both names are attached. She is a huge portion of this package. Yeah, the mean. She's, the kids, screaming at her. She's screaming at the kids. The old ladies in the front. This is a package. Parker Lee and Hera is a package. The power couple is phenomenal. And I think, look, Parker's already got. He is the Liberty. Got to go in my head. Yeah, he's the Liberty champion. As I scroll through all the championships down at WrestleMerica, so he's already capturing some gold. You've had the opportunity to be in the ring with us, so you're going to give a unique perspective to Parker.
Yeah, I've been in the ring with Parker a few times, and here recently I got, they included this. I don't even know if they have like a team name or if it's just Parker Lee and Hera. I got the opportunity to work with them both in Jackson for Lariato, and when I tell you that they made it so easy for the crowd to get behind me because they hated them so much. You can't ask for a better like dynamic there when the heel is doing their job and getting the heat that they need. I'm not gonna lie, when I first saw these two join forces on camera in the ring together, I was a little hesitant because I knew they were going for the heel dynamic. And part of me, just as a guy, I was like, Parker's going to be a baby face in this because everybody's going to feel, because we all know.
Listen. No, the funny thing,
know.
I don't want to cut you off, but that's 100%. At one point, I thought to where this package was going, that she would be controlling this babyface heel and making him be whatever. But over the last,
no, they have made it work. They have made it work to where Parker is just as hated as she is. And so, yeah, I mean, like I said, I was in the ring with them. They made it so easy just because. I mean, we did the old school. The hyena got ejected, and I mean, it was one of the loudest pops of the night when she got thrown out. And so, these two and their promos that they're putting out are they're not intentionally funny, but they are like, God, why do I relate to this? This is funny, and it's like, but then you see them in person, and it's like, I just want to throw a napkin at them. I just want to, they get under your skin, and I think they're doing a phenomenal job with it.
Oh, yeah, the kids, like I said, the kids absolutely can't stand them. They're screaming at them, and she doesn't hold back. She gets right in those kids' face. She gets in, there's a couple that comes to a lot of the OneFall shows, and they're just back and forth, and it's a money package. I think more people. Again, this is why I a lot of times say if you're looking for a good combo to bring in, there's one for you.
Right. No, I fully agree with that.
Last but not least, this guy used to be in the Power 5 pretty regularly. And I just feel like as of late, he's kind of. You ever have that guy that you're like, I'm waiting to hear him step out on a stage and say, "Put respect on my name"? This is that guy. CT Keys literally was. I told people, like, at one point, like, he's the Southern Fried champion. He was very temporarily, but he was a champion at Coastal Empire. He was a tag champion and a Liberty champion down in Wrestle America. He's a player at Southern Honor, etc. Well, this is why I think he's being underrated and underappreciated right now. People aren't giving him enough love, and he is literally in one weekend challenging for the Southern Fried title at Shindig, Southern Honor the night before. One weekend, he has an opportunity to become the champion at two of the most powerful promotions in state Georgia.
Yeah, so I think CT is one of those guys that, because CT's been around for a hot minute as well. Mm-hmm. And I don't want to speak for him, and I could be completely wrong by saying this, but I want to say that I heard like he kind of wanted to slow down a little bit. He wanted to kind of slow his bookings and things like that down. And I feel like anytime that you do that, business is just going to pick up for you. And I feel like that's what's happening right here is he kind of slowed down for a little bit like he wanted, but he's just too damn good to slow down. He's too good to not use. And so I think that's where CT is right now is, he's in phenomenal shape. He's a phenomenal in-ring talent, and he gets it. He gets wrestling. So for promoters to see him want to slow down, it's like, no, dude, I need a champion that looks like a champion.
Yeah. You brought up the silhouette test. Like you bring up, like there's a comment we make all the time about, hey, the guy looks like a wrestler. Typically when CT Keys walks in the room, I'm like, okay, if he's not a wrestler, like he's an athlete somewhere. Like he's playing something.
Yeah, if you see CT in a gas station or a grocery store, you're like, holy crap, who is that? Your head is turning.
He's a look, with all due respect, he's a Falcon. Like he's an Atlanta Falcon, or he's on a team. Like he is a NFL player. He's like I said, that's what I mean by that. He's just without a doubt, I went through this long phase of me going, I would only see him on one show. And I would just scream at the top of my lungs on a weekly basis on the show and go, why is he not booked in more places? Then he started getting booked in more places, and he got on a hot streak. And right now, I think everybody's – the reason I think the underrated, underappreciated, sometimes it's a guy like a CT Keys. We're very much fans of the shiny new toy. And sometimes we forget, hey, your favorite toy's sitting over here. You're just playing with a new one. But sometimes you got to look back every now and then and go, oh, CT Keys is still sitting there. And then the next thing you know, he's challenging for the Southern Honor and Southern Fried titles in the same weekend.
Yeah, but I think that's where it makes it fun. Is it's like, okay, we're gonna brush the dust off of this old toy over here, and then whenever he pops off and shows, hey, this is why I'm still around. This is why I'm still doing what I'm doing. It's like it gives you that appreciation to where he's not on the underappreciated side of this list.
Well, look, we teased it. Obviously, he's got a couple matches coming up this weekend. But obviously, before we jump into, hey, there's a lot, because there is a lot of stuff coming up this weekend. We're going to jump into the Georgia Wrestling Spotlight. And look, man, I know it's your first time. You're coming in. We hit the accelerator when we get to the Spotlight sometimes because there's lots of stuff to cover.
This is the part I was sweating. This is
the part you're worried about, yeah. But don't, because look, we're going to start off obviously every Spotlight. We go right into the Indy Rewind, and we take a look back at all of the shows that happened over the past week. For those people who got their stuff in, as I always like to throw that disclaimer in at the end. First show we're going to jump into is Friday. Myself, by the way, Indy Rewinds are awesome. When I tell you the furthest drive I had to make was 25 minutes. This past weekend, 2 shows, and the farthest one was 25 minutes from my house. Dang. Those are always a plus because that doesn't happen often.
That never happens.
It never happens, yeah. Friday, I made the drive literally 18 minutes from my driveway. I pulled into the Diesel Tap House. Disruptor was running there in Beaufort, Georgia. You've worked Disruptor before, so you're pretty familiar with those guys as well. Lots of stuff going on. Randy Wentworth has this verified pure championship thing. He's got all these rules. He's making it up on the fly. If you haven't seen it, check them out. Dude, go check them out at Diesel Tap House. Randy Wentworth's getting under everybody. Wait a minute. You've tagged with that guy.
Yeah, we did. Yeah, he's a very unique character. Didn't really want to do much in our match, but except for when it was time to get the win, which he didn't.
Work smarter, not harder. That's what he does. But Pure Rules, he took advantage of poor mat sales. Guess what? One of the rules he said, part of the Pure Rules Championship rule book is you cannot drink beer during the match.
So Popeye spinach was taken away from him.
Well, he was smart. He chugged one before the bell rang, so there was that. But he did take a loss at Randy Wentworth by any means necessary, as we always like to say on the show. One of the best matches I've seen in a while. I'm not going to lie to you. Mark Davidson, Rico Gonzalez, and Rob Killjoy in a triple threat. It was part of the King of the Triple Threat qualifiers. They've got a huge tournament going on there with triple threats. I know you're familiar with Rico, and obviously I know you're familiar with Rob Killjoy. Long history with Rob Killjoy, obviously. But have you seen this kid, Mark Davidson? He's pretty new to the area.
I've heard the name, but have not seen him yet. But I mean, what I have heard has just been pretty good things. And if he was able to hang with Killjoy and Rico in the same match, I can only imagine what he can do.
When you hear the second match I saw of his of the weekend, you'll even probably agree even more. Izzy Vaden picked up a win. Tim Miller picked up a win. Now, arguably, look, I don't say this often, and I don't take it lightly when I say it. Vi Morales and Alan Angels, I get that everything's going to come from the ending, but up until that ending, the match that those two guys put on, spectacular. I'm not going to say who. I'm not going to say that on the air. Never mind. I'm going to backpedal off of that one easily. But arguably one of the best matches I've seen this year. They did a really good job. However, Krule interferes in the match. He pie-faced Angels to get, anyway, you get the gist.
Right.
This is far from over because Alan Angels is now aligned with Krule, who, by the way, then would go on in the next match and wrestle Big Ben Bishop and Zicky Dice in a triple threat qualifier. There's video footage out here. I've seen it. Did you ever think you'd see a match where Zicky Dice is like the little guy in the match?
No, because he's so, for lack of better words, outlandish. He makes himself bigger than life. So for Zicky to be the little guy, that is which, I mean, you've got Krule and Ben Bishop. I think Ben Bishop is the mediator in this match because he can match Zicky's entertainment and Krule's height. So I think I would have thought this was Ben Bishop's to win right here. I thought this would have been his for the taking.
You would have thought incorrectly. Big man picked up a win there, Krule. However, that's not the big story that comes out of the night. They leave Zicky Dice laying, and literally, we had forgotten, it feels like at times, that the Coyote, Tim Miller, he does have the golden turnbuckle. We call it the equivalent of a Money in the Bank, cashes in, and now Tim Miller is your Disruptor Heavyweight Champion in the midst of all of the chaos of Vari and Allen and all these pieces of Zicky being the champion at the time. We thought this was the player, and the guy from the outside comes in, and he's your champion.
With that, it takes you back to, like you were just saying, the Money in the Bank and how fun that can be. I've been out for a while, so I hadn't really seen what they were doing, if they had any real teases or anything with the golden turnbuckle, or if it was just kind of a, hey, let's go ahead and cash this in. I'm curious though, since you were there, how did the fans react to this? Did they know what was going on as far as with this? And that's kind of why I asked.
The irony is they didn't tease it, but he was always announced with it.
Okay. That's what I was curious about, if it was just something that he carried as an object with him and fans had no clue what it was.
No. No. He was always announced, that he had it.
And then I'm sure they made like a spectacle of it when he cashed in and explained he's cashing in. So that's one thing.
Talked to the ref, they explained it, boom,
Yeah, that's one thing I feel like indie shows do. They always want to do this Money in the Bank concept, and then it's kind of like you were saying, you forget about it. You don't think about it, and then it's time for the cash in, and people are like, how did that happen? And the reason I say that is that happened with me at Lariato with the heavyweight championship cash in. There, I had a chip that was honestly forgotten about, and then once I cashed it in, it was like we got the pop. It was because everybody was glad I beat John Schuyler, but I had fans that, how did you do that? What went down? So I'm glad that they kind of
and to clarify to you, and more so, when I say they forgot, it was just a total chaos of Krule and Bishop and everything. And then it's like, bam, literally, like, you're surprised the ring's still standing. Zicky's laying out, and everybody's like, the show's over, and then all of a sudden it's like, here he comes sliding, and you're like, oh.
Right.
And that's when, like, the light bulb does go off when he's and he's talking to the ref. You kind of see that moment, and I thought they did a pretty good job with it there. But look, there are big shows coming up here. They're at the Era always at the end of the month. I believe it's June 27th. If I'm wrong, I'm sure I will hear it tomorrow when they'll let me know. But look, what's going on with Krule and Allen Angels? Vari Morales is not going to let this go. I promise you that will not be the case. Tim Miller, he's your new champion. Zicky Dice, what's going to happen there? I mean, there's a million pieces from Sunday. Oh, and by the way, there's a little topic of Big Ben Bishop.
Right.
What's gonna, he's involved in all of this. So it's wild and crazy. Disruptor, check them out. I always say give them a follow. Their best follow is Instagram, not on Facebook. They put a lot more information on their Instagram page, so follow them there. Also on Friday, APW, the artist formerly known as Squared Circle Action there in Royston at the Royston Dome. Tower picks up a win. De Silva picked up a big win over Seabolt. Chop Top defeated Chris Nelms. Drox defeated TKO. Jacob Athwards and James Boulevard they defeated the New Horizon, which is Frost and Dexter, Stevie Ray Frost. I'm going to get your take on Stevie Ray Frost here in a minute, but Austin Thorne defeated Ballinger for the Friday night title. Let me ask you a question. So Stevie Ray Frost, have you crossed paths with him across the state of Georgia?
I want to say that I have been on the same show with him over in West Georgia on some of the shows that they run, but I've heard the name. again, one of those guys, kind of, I would say, like in the same boat as Michael Solar, where he's got potential and you hear great things about him, but is he confined to one area? Does he,
That's what I love, man. He's the premier all-star champion. He's up in Royston on the other side, so like he's in multiple corners, and I'm like, he's a guy that's just over the last year has kind of caught our eye that we just keep hearing the name more and more and more. So, yeah, who knows? Tower, that's the big story coming out. JJ gets his way. Tower's banned from using the choke slam in his big title match coming up at Freedom Fling. I think, make sure that's correct in my head, versus Scott Mason. Lots of stuff going on. Rick Page is always causing problems there as well. But remember, Freedom Fling's June 13th, but they are there week in, week out, without fail there in Royston, short of any major holidays. So June 6th, this Friday, will be their next big show. Saturday, I made the track up to Jefferson, Georgia, Jackson County Ag Center. Look, OneFall, man. I always tell you, like, you look at if you rattle through this is why you need the show notes, folks. 10 matches. We obviously can't zip through all of them, so we're going to hit the highlights. Parker Lee defeated JD Inc. I had not realized this was their first meeting ever. Two guys that had been at OneFall turnbuckle since like day one, and this was the first time they got in the ring. By the way, check this one out when it's available somewhere, anywhere. But Parker Lee picks up a win. Hera picks up a win. We talked about that. That power couple just keeps picking up W's everywhere they are. One of the big matches of the night, Jack Jameson defeats QT Marshall. But, of course, Jameson's done winning anything clean anymore. Like, he's cheating to win. You understand.
Hey, you got to do what it takes.
Yeah. But this is, pupil, student, match. Jameson picks up the win because of a lot of his buddies, in the frat house come out. They kind of get involved. We're going to come back to the big announcement that spun out of this, by the way.
Look, with the frat house, though, I mean, I understand they helped, but their whole motto is win or lose, we booze, right? So if they win, they get to booze more. So, if they can help it, can't discount them.
There's a lot of talent. I don't take anything away from the frat house. There is a lot of talent in there. And I'm going to come to them last. I promise you, we're going to come to them last for a reason. Ilya Drago, successful title defense. He is the newly crowned OneFall champion. Picked up a win over Xavier Young. Tried to make example out of this kid. He took the chair to Brady Booker at the last Watkinsville show, hence what's kept him out of the match. He tried to do the same to Xavier Young, but the aforementioned Brady Booker made a surprise, ran him off, and announced big, huge thing coming up. The June 16th show in Watkinsville. I'm making my calendar in my head, flipping around, making sure that's correct. Big Battle Royal. The winner of that Battle Royal will go on to the center stage show July 25th to face Ilya Drago for that championship. And I got a feeling everybody's betting odds. Look, he took my betting odds went out for that championship match, and he completely hosed me out by taking Brady out of that. But the betting odds are coming out. Who's going to win that Battle Royal and who's going to win that title? I got a feeling my money's going on Brady Booker winning that Battle Royal and heading center stage.
That's if Drago has anything to do with it.
Here's the problem. He's got a title defense coming up this week against Tyler Shoup. So let's not always assume that Drago's still going to be the champion.
One of my favorite guys out there. So let's see if Shoup hits harder, because we know he trains harder.
Exactly. Coming back, Mark Davidson. I talked about him earlier. This was match number 2 that I told you that I was telling you about earlier. Vari Morales versus Mark Davidson. You want to talk about a match with like a extra gear in it? This is it. These guys have they hit the gas and they didn't stop. Obviously, you're familiar with Vari. You know he's got that extra gear in him. Look, I make a running joke, and I'm going to ask you. I told every now and then I'm going to throw a hard question at you. We always joke about why Vari's not booked at more places, and sometimes I throw out a theory. I could be wrong. I just think I'm right on this one. I feel at times I think some promotions are afraid to book him because the speed at which he goes, he makes their guys look slow.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, we've used Vari and Coastal before, and there's certain gears that you have to pick up with certain people, and I feel like Vari is at the top of that, gear chain. And so not a lot of guys can, keep up. And so with that, Vari could say, okay, well, let me knock it down. And I'm sure he does in certain cases, but he's also not going to make you look or make you let him look like he can't go. So Vari is definitely one of those guys that I feel like promoters should bring in, like the Chip Days and things like that, where if you want to test your best, bring in Vari.
And we found out this weekend that was a true measuring stick was Mark Davidson for me to see him in that triple threat with Rico and Rob Killjoy, then going out there and hanging with Vari. I'm like, okay, we're probably going to see this guy book some more. Like, that's how I kind of knew. So check them out. But now to the frat house. The reason I wanted to save them for last, they had a big, huge match with KJ Impala. He is, by the way, your Wrestle America champion. The main men, two young guys who I'm a massive fan of. Guys, they're young. They're learning on the fly, and they're in there hanging with guys who are on TV on a weekly basis. Says a lot about those kids. However, everything goes sideways, and literally it's a complete and utter mess. The frat house does pick up the win. It is what it is. But afterwards, the big announcement that everybody's going to walk away from this show and remember, QT comes out to end of the show and tells them if they all like to play and they like to help each other and interfere in each other's matches, at the summer stage show, that's what they're calling their big center stage show, it will be QT Marshall, Billy Gunn and the Gun Club, his two sons, versus all four of the frat house at one time. So there ain't going to be no outside interference.
Nice.
Pretty big show. Look, I know all gears are heading to that big show, but all along the way, if you know OneFall, dude, they've probably got, I always joke, they've got 30 shows between there and then. So let's
right. Well, it's also one of those things, like whenever they announced this, everybody was kind of like, okay, this is an indie show. Like, what a big risk. Like, what, how are they going to put as many butts and seats as they are? And I think, we're a week removed of when they first announced the show happening. And I mean, we've already got a couple of matches and we've got a battle royal that was made to see who will face their champion. They're doing it right, and they're keeping you involved and keeping you on your toes of, okay, like, now we've got this frat house versus Gun Club and Billy Gunn. Like, what? That's enough right there to make you want to pay a ticket. And then they've announced, Jay Lethal. There's faces on the poster that haven't been announced with matches. So it's like, I think they're going to do a big thing, and I think this is definitely going to be a huge success for OneFall.
Satnam Singh, Jay Lethal, Harley Cameron, obviously the frat house has been mentioned. Tony Schiavone's going to be there as part of the meet and greet. MJF is coming to do a separate meet and greet. It is not part of the ticket.
And I hear that it's not in ring, right?
It is not in the ring as well. But that ticket is available. Give OneFall a follow on their Facebook page and the links to buy those tickets, those separate tickets for the MJF. And by the way, I double checked. Last I looked, I think ringside's gone. And literally, like, it's doing really well. I had a conversation with those guys over the weekend. It's going really well right now. So absolutely get your tickets as well.
Yeah, one thing, this is like completely off the rail here, but one thing I'm excited about this show is, we saw like the professional links that they went whenever they had their first showing under, the turnbuckle banner. And we saw how professional that looked and how the setup was. So I'm like super excited to see how they're going to do it production wise and see like the setup they've got. So a lot to look forward to with OneFall's summer stage and, their shows coming up in between.
Yeah, hopefully over the next few weeks we're going to see more of those stories play out and where they're going to end up, who ends up where at that show. Let's keep it rolling. Bullpin Pro Wrestling. Bull Buchanan does a spectacular job. It's one of my favorite promotions in the state of Georgia. And guess what? I've never had a chance to see them in person because they're like 4 hours away from me half the time. But I've watched tons of video. I love what they do over there. They were in Roanoke, Alabama. You've done that Alabama track before.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a haul. Big wins by Eddie Honcho, AJ Black, Sean Nelson. But one of the big matches on the card, Xavier Cross defeated Rob Adonis. However, he does retain his title. Rob Adonis is still your champion. JT Paradox and Lamar Phillips, wild tag match, blah, blah, blah. Everything's count out. It's just a mess over there. Have you worked Bullpen yet?
I have not. I've talked to Bull and everything, not about Bullpen, but when I saw him at Southern Honor a couple times, and so but never worked Bullpen. But I mean, it's definitely one of those promotions that I'm like, if I get a free date and they're running, I definitely need to hit them up.
Yeah, they did something like we always talk about just the different types of promotion out there, and that's a very old school.
Mm-hmm.
I think they're in their wheelhouse where they are in that West
Right.
Georgia, East Alabama. They're doing a really good job over there. They do a lot of brawls. They do a lot. It's a good Southern. It's I
Mm-hmm.
don't. Southern wrestling maybe is the right word that I'm looking for. But check them out. They got some
It's a
huge
good
news.
wrestling show.
Exactly. But they've got some cool stuff coming up. He's been teasing this Bullpen TV. I'm curious to see what he's going to do there. But their next big show's June 21st. We'll be talking about there here in a couple of weeks. Now we're going to hit close to home a little bit for Bryce Cannon. Coastal Empire Wrestling in Savannah, Georgia. Randall Reno defeated Sergeant Scratch. Tommy Mars defeated Mason Allen.
In that match right there, Tommy Mars and Mason. When I say that Mason came out looking like he just went to war, I think Tommy's like fingerprints were left in that man's chest. That match was very hard hitting. It was wild.
Young Mighty Joe, Rosario Grillo. We talked about him a little bit earlier in the show. Young Mighty Joe, I've been watching from afar, and I really appreciate the development we've seen and the growth that we've seen. I think the kid's got a. I am a big character fan. Like I'm a big fan of character, wrestlers. I just always have been, and I know you're high on him as well. I know y'all, obviously being down in that area, but Grillo to pick up a win over Grillo, who we've praised on Underrated Underappreciated, says a lot for where he's at right now.
Right. Yeah. Young Mighty Joe, he's one of those that he's young in the business, but he's willing to learn. He's willing to take advice, even if he doesn't agree with some of it. You can see like his wheels are turning, and he's willing to give things a chance and kind of let them play out. And I mean, he's learning from guys that he's in there with. I mean, not to talk highly of him at all, but I mean, he was in that storyline with Dax Anthony. And so I feel like he learned something from that. He continues to get better and better each show. But yeah, Young Mighty Joe is definitely one of those guys that we're happy to have and happy to work with down in Coastal.
The Good Hand, they defeat the Allen brothers. They do retain their titles. I'm coming back. Don't panic. J. Alpha Miller defeated Jimmy Wild.
We can skip it.
Hakeem Young defeats Zach Mosley. He retains the Coastal Chaos Championship. And Hunter James defeated Chad Skywalker with Simon Sermon to retain that Coastal Empire Championship. Look, Zach came up short, man. It was a rough night for the group as a whole. Let's be blunt.
Right.
Zach comes up short against Hakeem Young, and then we'll come back to obviously the one that's going to hit a little bit close to home. You took the loss to Dax Anthony, and that thing had been like that had to leave a sour taste. It's been a year in the making, and then some.
Yeah, what left the sour taste was how he did it. Yeah. I grabbed the microphone after the match, and I stated, I expected the underhanded tactics. I expected, to be throwing some wild cards in there, and but I'm man enough to admit he got one over on me. He mule kicked the back of my leg, and put me down, grabbed the tights, and went about his merry way. But like I said, I mean, this is far from over. This is a year in the making. This is a year of this man taunting me. This is a year of, just watching him torment others and then look over at a commentary table at me because he knows I can't do anything. But, I'm healthy. I'm back. And if he wants to cheat to win, I used to be in that headspace too, Dax. So, don't count me out, buddy.
Look, we know, at Tusslepalooza, you guys are going to pick each other's opponents. I'm curious to see how that plays out. Maybe you'll tease that here as we get closer to that one.
Well, I was going to ask, do you want to do like breaking news where I pick it right now, or? I'm just kidding. I'm totally kidding. We're not giving them it on the first episode, buddy.
Exactly. Maybe the week before we'll tease it out. Yeah, something like that. Again, the big news obviously coming out is Hunter James is still your champion. But other news coming out of that, I do want to mention it before we move on. Look, Randall Reno's not been Mr. Popular there, but it looks like maybe he's seen the light. Maybe he's seen, it's a little change of heart here.
Yeah, I mean, I think with Donald Jakes gone, Simon Sermon losing complete control, and him kind of seeing what's going on around him now and not being as brainwashed, I think Randall Reno is definitely starting to see the light, and we may get the return of Randy Reno. So, because things are getting a little hairy, and I think Reno's a little smarter than what Simon thinks he is.
It's obviously, great stuff going down there. We've talked about you guys month in, month out when you guys were running down there. The entire card was really good, but you're heading into the summer, so it's time for temperatures are going to pick up. Make sure you're following Coastal Empire on YouTube. They put out their show. You can actually catch the entire show there. Next show date is June the 28th. Cornelia, Georgia, OSWA. They ran on Saturday as well. A lot of stuff going on. Big surprise there. The ultimate title on the line. Curtis Coleman showed up to his show, man. Boom. He actually – no, I'm sorry. This is an inside joke there. Sorry. The people that have listened for a while know. Marcus Adams defeated Curtis Coleman. De Silva wins the corporate title in the roulette match. I'm not getting into those rules because I don't have them in front of me. But kudos for him. The Odd Squad retained the tag titles as well. But the question now becomes, Marcus Adams is still your champions. What's next? Do we get an open challenge at the next show in a couple months? Lucas De Silva, he's the co-corporate champion. I'm not sure what that means, so we got to find out. That's why you buy your tickets. So what happens with Lucas De Silva and Caleb Crocker in this title? We're going to find out. Check them out. OSWA. They haven't set the new date for their show yet, but will be available. This show will be on YouTube. Sunday, Scrappy Championship Wrestling at the Royston Dome there. Chop Top picking up a win. De Silva picking up a win over Kenway. That is a huge win for Lucas De Silva.
Oh, yeah.
Any win over Kenway's massive.
Yeah, that one is the one that stuck out to me actually on this card was the fact that De Silva. I would love to see that because both men can be, in that grapple style and that rough and tough wrestling style. So I've been in the ring with Kenway. I know how hard he can hit. I know how fast he can go, and I've watched a few of the De Silva's matches, and that is one that if there is footage of this, I would like to know where it is so I could see it. Mainly, not for the action, but to see how De Silva pulled this victory out. Because, like you said, that is a hell of a victory.
It is. Tower picked up a win over Christian Taylor, who we're a massive fan of. But that kid, we call those life lessons, Christian. Like that's one of those life lessons against Tower. Seabolt and Trigger defeated Lev and Jaden Vane. There's another big win, especially over Alexander Lev. Teo defeated Caleb Crocker. Ended in a time limit draw. So more is going to come out of that story, I am sure. Check them out. Whole lot of action there at Scrappy. The next date, they run more quarterly, bi-monthly, but the next show date they gave me is August the 24th. It's the Summer of Scrappy. Check them out on YouTube as well. Deep South ran in Atlanta on Sunday as well. CT Entertainment picked up a win. Hunter James picked up a win. Austin Towers defeated Stunt Marshall. Apollo Prince and J. Alpha Miller defeated Jacob Johnson and Naja. But that wasn't the big story coming out of Deep South. Naja turned his back on Jacob Johnson following the loss. I'm like, guys, here's what I always tell people. No disrespect. If you watch somebody's history long enough, eventually you'll see who they are. Like, don't be shocked when it happens.
You're going to watch them crack, which I saw a video somewhere where it looked like there may have been some miscommunication and Naja hit the frog splash on Jacob Johnson after Apollo moved. So not sure what was going on there. And then to hear that he, snapped at the end. It's just,
Yeah. You guys, your tempers are short and sometimes things happen. Don't always get carried away. Obviously they will be back June the 29th. And that's the burning question. Why? Why Naja? Why? That's always the questions when it come in, But look, that leads us into one of my favorite segments. Sometimes it's hard, sometimes it's easy. But that's right. It is time for Who Won the Week. We had a conversation about this one. This was last week, piece of cake, no problem. We were like, hey, there's 2 answers, easy. This week, a little more difficult. But I think I'm pretty happy with our answer. If you're not happy with our answer, send a hate mail to Bryce Cannon at makeupsomeemail.com. No, just kidding. Listen, you got to give your props to Tim Miller, Disruptor champion. It's not just that he won the Disruptor Championship. It's the way he did it, like very, very intelligently waited, and waited for the exact right moment. And when opportunity presented itself, bam, he cashed in. Listen, I get this whole like, oh, he cheats, he doesn't cheat. That doesn't matter. This is smart. One of the dumbest mistakes I ever said to somebody was, do you remember John Cena going like, I'm declaring, I am cashing in, and I am facing you? I'm like, that is the dumbest thing, and I love John Cena at the time. But, like, don't do that. That is not what that's about.
Look, I mean, I've learned here recently, make your own opportunities, and that's exactly what this man did, and it paid off for him. Got the win, got a championship. You know, now he's got big shoes to fill, though.
Listen, big shoes to fill is an understatement because he's got a lot of big shoes chasing him. Now you're in a scenario with Vari Morales, Alan Angels, Zicky Dice, Ben Bishop, and Krule. And you're the common denominator in all of that mess that at any point any one of those guys could want to be the champion, and you're in their crosshairs. They always say it's easier to become the champion than it is to stay the champion.
That is very true. It's, yeah, and I feel like Tim, though, he's one of those that has it going for him. So he's got the crowd over there at Disruptor behind him. Because I mean, he got one hell of a reaction whenever we were at Disruptor. So as long as that crowd stays behind him, he keeps his head on straight and honestly turned a little. You know, I think he'll do good, be a good champion for him.
He will do well, and you know, look, we'll find out at their next show at the end of June. Let's keep it moving. It is time for one of our favorite parts of the episode, making the drives, where we get to talk about all the stuff coming up. This one's going to be a little unique as we're doing the making the drives because your name's going to come up a couple times. It'll probably happen more over the next month. So this is the part where we say, hey, let's keep it, you know.
Hey, look, I've remained professional.
You've done great up to this point, so let's kind of hold it there. Friday, June the 6th, up in Canton, Georgia, bell time's 8 o'clock. Southern Honor Wrestling is back. Obviously, the big match on the card, as far as the main event, Joe Black versus CT Keys. They are for the Southern Honor Championship. We already discussed that a little bit when we were talking about CT Keys earlier. So let's get into Kyle Matthews versus Bryce Cannon for that Jake the Snake Legacy title.
Yeah,
we're not getting in. Hold on, we're not getting into how you got this shot and what you did at the show. Let's just talk about the match.
Well, what do you want to know, Nick?
No, let's break it down. Let's pretend. Let's be by. You know, like, hey, this is going to be a great match. 2 good guys, but you're only in the ring with one of the best wrestlers, you know, technical wrestlers to ever grace Georgia. Correct?
Correct. Kyle Matthews is one of those that I used to watch in Warner Robins, Georgia, at Rampage Pro Wrestling. And not to jump ahead, but same with Chip Day. It's a big weekend for the 6-year-old Bryce Cannon that used to watch these guys. I get to beat the crap out of both of them and show them that you know, this next generation is where it's at in wrestling. So can't wait to you know, become the Jake the Snake Legacy champion. Create the legacy of my own. I mean, Southern Honor just posted happy birthday to the man, and he's got me hooked in the DDT. So what better way to rub it in his face and tell him happy birthday with his legacy championship over my shoulder at the end of Friday night.
So absolutely make sure you're there for that. Happy Madness, Gunnar Miller. Happy Madness versus Gunnar Miller and Matt Griffin. This thing just continues to escalate and gets bigger. Are they going to be managed by a four-legged friend, you think? I don't think Matt Griffin is that dumb to bring Juju into the house.
They should come out to Sarah McLachlan. That's my call.
Okay. I thought we were going to be good here, but no, I got you. So Hunter James versus Byron Young, $5,000 versus the Rumble Jack spot.
See, I think this is the match I want to be in, but whoever's getting paid the $5,000 is, on the side I want to be.
Well, Hunter James wants that spot. That's
right.
You really got to want that Rumble Jack spot
for $5,000.
For $5,000.
I mean, let's go back though. Last show, I mean, Hunter did kind of get screwed a little bit. He didn't make the 10 count in the ring. Byron did some underhanded tactics, almost threw him over the guardrail. Like, come on, you got to give Hunter the benefit of the doubt here.
Pay attention to your refs counts. That's all I'm going to say. Sean Dean versus Liam Gray. Grayson Pierce, Jay Lucas, two young up-and-comer guys I'm a big fan of. That's absolutely one you want to check out. And Guillo versus Ethan Dallas. He taught his brother a lesson. I guess it's, they just want to keep it all in the family. And, Guillo's going to just keep giving out lessons to the Dallas family at this point, I guess is the plan. Again, that is Friday night, 8 o'clock, Canton, Georgia. Also at 8 o'clock, Royston, Georgia, at the Royston Dome. Look, SCA is there. I get it, guys. It's hard to break. It's APW, John the Body Johnson, them. They can run it however they want to. I'm just itching and praying for the day that SCA is back in the control and out, APW. But every single Friday night without clockwork, they're there. So make sure you're checking them out. Now we get into the other big show for you for the weekend. On Saturday, June the 7th, it is Shindig. Arguably, and I throw that out there, arguably the biggest show of the summer. Southern Fried always knocks it out of the park with Shindig. Bell time is 7 p.m. right there in the Boys and Girls Club in Monroe, Georgia. The main event, this is debatable, folks. I'll go ahead and tell you, it's 3 matches. You could argue 4 or 5 matches at this part. Actually, you know what? Actually, the whole card, when you look at it from top to bottom, could main event any show the more you look at it. But let's go Sal Renaro. He is defending the championship versus CT Keys. This has been this is a long time coming. CT Keys has fought his way back. This will be his opportunity. Hopefully, at this point, he could be a 2-time champion if he can pick up the win. I have been told the Southern Fried Penitentiary match, if you have not, I have been described to what this thing's going to look like. I will be there. To the point, let me tell you, my wife is having a surgery on the 5th. And I made sure that somebody's going to be here on the 7th so I can make this show. That's how excited I am about seeing this penitentiary match with everything that's going on as far as the structure itself. Do you remember when we heard I say to the guy half my age.
I've heard a little bit of it. I've heard a little bit of the plan for the setup, and it's going to be a spectacle to see, especially on like an independent level.
Aren't you glad you're not in it after all the stuff you've heard about what that thing's going to be built like?
Yeah.
And you won't be in it because you're wrestling Chip Day. Listen, I will say, look, now we're going to a little bit. You guys referenced the match that I saw that you guys wrestled, a year plus ago. Is it 2 years ago or is it a year?
Yeah, it was 2 years ago. I was active last year.
Yeah, so I thought it was at the end of the, anyway, I'm old. Arguably, at that point, let me ask you, because I can ask you for sitting here, was that match Bryce Cannon's, like, where you think the masses picked up on it? Like, that you clicked with everybody, like, as a singles guy?
I think it helped solidify. I think people were starting to see, okay, he's starting to do his own thing. He's starting to run solo. He's starting to get some momentum behind it. But then that match with Chip Day and what I proved the lengths that I could go, and that I could hold up and go with the measuring stick in Georgia, as some would call him. I definitely think it got me the recognition I needed and validation that I needed from people.
Does this match, in your mind, do you need this match, or because you made a line?
I think the roles are reversed here. People have had the campaigns of make wrestling great again. Well, this campaign for Chip is make Chip Day relevant again. And that is his whole reasoning with stepping in the ring with Bryce Cannon at, like you said, the biggest show of the summer in independent Georgia wrestling.
We will see, guys. Like I said, look, I think, by the way, this has all the opportunities in the world. Not kissing up because you're sitting here. I think this match could arguably be easily the best match on the card. At the end, from bell to bell, it'll be hard to follow. I definitely wouldn't want to. However, we say that, and then the next match we're going to discuss is Carly Bravo and Griff Garrison. Two guys who have got strong Georgia roots. Going to be a great match. Both of these guys are now on TV. You can catch them, so obviously that shows you how good of that match it could be. Seth DeLay, Michael Walker. They are defending the Southern Fried titles versus Naja and Nate Mansions. Easy for me to say. Will Caution is your champion. He will defend the Georgia Heritage title in an I Quit match against Jacob Ashworth. And by the way, folks, I got some bad news for Will Caution. Getting Jacob Ashworth to say I quit, easier said than done. And I don't like your chances, Will Caution, at that point. That's just
these guys have just been going at it for what I feel like forever. I mean, I just feel like every time I turn around, these two are going at it.
Still to this day, they have been. This has been a OSWA, like Cornelia Landmark Arena. Like it's just kind of, they just keep going and keep going. But and it doesn't look like it's ending anytime soon. So hopefully that's there. So again, Shindig is in Monroe, Georgia. Bell time is 7:00. Boys and Girls Club right there in Monroe. Absolutely, I don't. Look, when I say it's one of, if not the best, biggest shows of the summer, I'm not kidding. It is absolutely one show you don't want to miss. Also on Saturday, OneFall Wrestling is in Watkinsville up at South Main Brewing. We talked about it a little bit earlier. Drago will defend that OneFall title versus Tyler Shoup. He better keep his head on a swivel because, Brady Booker made that appearance, and where we've talked about that a little more. QT Marshall versus Jimmy Wild. I don't know if you know Jimmy. I'm a huge fan of Jimmy Wild. I think he's got a huge potential. There's a little bit of a switch I think I'm waiting for to flip, and I think he's a true player. But OneFall is what it is, dude. It is absolutely multiple shows, it feels like, every weekend, multiple locations, and you absolutely have no idea who's going to show up there. It is not unusual for a Jay Lethal Sottom seeing Billy Gunn and, infantry, whoever. It's not crazy for that to happen. And somebody was like, well, Carly's on the other show. Like, it ain't far between those two.
Right.
But it could happen. Premier All-Star in Carrollton, Georgia. Look, the big news coming out of there, Frankie Valentine with Tweety is going to challenge Stevie Ray Frost for the Premier All-Star Championship that we discussed earlier. I have not seen Frankie in a long time in person. Do you know Frankie?
Yep. Yeah, we've got history with Frankie. I remember wrestling him and AJ Black, and I've wrestled Frankie more times than I can count.
Speaking of AJ Black, he will be challenging the West Georgia champion Alexander Lev for the West Georgia Championship. Premier All-Star Tag Team Champions, the DCVC. Got it on the first time. Murder One and Joe Black. The Wonder Boys will be there. Ethan and Aaron Dallas, Lamar Phillips, Ryan Marks, Austin Thorne, J-Rod, and more. Also on Saturday, it's a lot of shows this weekend. You see why the show goes so long sometimes? Passion of Wrestling in Swainsboro, Georgia. Dead Man's Hand will defend against a problem posse, Bud Heavy, Cody Behringer, and Swole in a triple threat, and D-Money versus Dan Yoder. Also, 12 Gauge Wrestling is going to be running up there in Rome, Georgia. Bell time is 7 p.m. Your boy Zach Mosley's returning to Rome. He's got a heck of a history there in Rome, Georgia, as you probably well know. But he's going to face the body snatcher, Hakeem Young. It's a familiar face coming back to haunt him. Any advice for Zach as he treks all the way up to Rome?
Look, I mean, those two just went at it this past weekend, so there's probably some unfinished business going on there. The biggest thing is, I hope Zach doesn't get too, engulfed in the, homecoming that the crowd's going to give him to where he takes his eyes off of Hakeem, because Hakeem's not going to give any care in the world about what that reaction from the crowd is like. All he wants to do is apparently snatch a body. That
seems to be the case. So good luck, Zach, heading home. the curse breaker, Chad Skywalker, will face J. Alpha Miller. Huge fan of that young man. Got a lot of stuff going on right now. Whole bunch of other, matches on the card. Check them out on social media as well. Sunday, big show for Sunday. Kraken Pro Wrestling, Tifton, Georgia. Bell time 4 p.m. That's right. It's 4 p.m. in the afternoon because it's a Sunday show. This is kind of their big celebration. It'd been a year. They kind of went around, had the big story. But this whole show is going to center around one thing: celebrating Mr. Underrated, Underappreciated himself, their new champion, Trevor Aon. I know you're a little familiar. I don't want to go long-winded on it, but like Kraken Pro Wrestling, I know you've kind of kept an eye on them from a little bit from, any thoughts on Kraken as they kind of successfully have their first year?
Yeah, no, I mean, I think what they've done in the past year has been great, especially bringing wrestling to South Georgia and giving those people down there, something to look forward to. And I mean, they've grown their audience, and it's just a testament to the team that they've got down there and the type of marketing and promotion that they're doing. Whatever they're doing down there is definitely working.
Yeah, I'm really proud. We always joke, the wife, she's mostly invested in a lot of those kids that are there, the Sam Skaggs, and I'm not going to mention the bad guys that she's a big fan of. But yeah, Kraken Pro Wrestling, month in, month out. Check them out on social media. By the way, check them out on YouTube. They do a very unique format where they put their shows out kind of in pieces over the stretch of the month, kind of like a unique TV. And that is on Sunday. Check them out in Tifton, Georgia. Monday night, listen, it's become a running joke on the show. The Now That's Wrestling show, I know you may have some, who knows, the joke on the show is, I believe they're running on June the 2nd. There was a poster put out.
They are. Yeah. I want to say that they're starting to run every Monday.
Is it every Monday? Because I was told
yesterday. It's going to be every Monday from what I've been told.
See, Friday I was told every 2 weeks. So by somebody else on the card. So that's kind of my point. Here's the thing.
To be determined.
To be determined. Because they're running on the 2nd. I have heard they're going to run on the 16th. So that's every 2 weeks that I know up to this point. But look, here's the thing I try to tell people. Follow them on social media. Get out this show. The show is not in Austell. It's now in Atlanta. Alex Kane versus Matt Riddle. Krule versus Myron Reed, hopefully. I think he had an injury, so we got to keep an update on that. Effie versus Kayla Capri. Trevor Aon versus Jay Lucas. Akeem Young, Grayson Pierce, Shoot Taylor. I mean, the left-hand the cards are just super stacked. I'm like, dude, there's names on this every time they run. I'm like,
yeah, I mean, they've had Moose, they've had Effie before, they've had Zicky Dice, they've had I've seen some names that they're talking about, and it's some exciting stuff.
Yeah, I absolutely I would love to push harder. I just tell people, give them a follow, especially now that's TV's social media page. I'm not necessarily saying follow it. I'm just saying go on their page and keep up with their posters, and when they announce that they're wrestling, absolutely check them out. I think, look, it is a Monday night show, so if you're looking for something to do on a Monday night, you're just like, I don't want to watch Raw again. I just want to go down and check them out on Now That's Wrestling. Listen, I know it's a lot of notes, folks. I can't even, it's 11 pages. That's kind of the running joke on our show. 11 pages of notes. Sign up on patreon.com/tappedoutpod. That way you can get those show notes. By the way, if you're a $10 member, you get that digital, the collectible that I'm doing here. And if you're a $25 member or higher, you're going to get that, actually the printed autographed 8x10. I've heard a rumor. Our June one is going to be awesome. By the way, I don't know if you've even heard the news. There's 2 of them in the month of June.
Ooh.
So I'm going to extend it. Now that everybody's aware, we teased the whole hype of who's the guest and who's the host and all that. 2 autographs this month. One of them is a national TV talent. You'll get that as part of a $25 membership. If you are signed up by the 7th, I'm doing that based on, because it's normally the 1st. If you're signed up by the 7th at the $25 level, you will get both of those, and we will get those mailed out towards the middle of the month. Well, man, look, I get it. It's a work in progress, and we're going to muscle through it. But how'd you do the first show?
Hey, I had a great time. I think we had some good conversation, and looking forward to the rest of the month. The Georgia scene is hot. We've got some great things to look forward to this weekend. I plan on having that title propped right here for us next week. And then, gloating about the victory against Chip Day on Saturday. So, yeah, I'm just looking forward to having fun every week.
Well, man, look, I don't know that I can do the exit as good as my buddy does always say. But here's the funny thing. There's a twist to it now. As he liked to say, if you do want to support indie wrestling, you can be a Patreon for us. You can watch the show. Or you can buy a ticket and you can go out to a show because, believe it or not, you could see that guy not in a seat. You could actually see that guy in a ring. But you could see me sitting over there as well. And hopefully, as the old saying goes, we will see you at the matches.